This is Technically Legal, a podcast about legal technology, the innovation in the legal industry, and the impact tech is having on the law. I'm Chad Main, the founder of legal services company Percipient, and on today's show, I have a conversation with Akshay Verma. He's the COO of contract automation company SpotDraft. When Akshay Verma graduated UC Berkeley, he figured something out. He was interested in law school, but he wasn't quite ready for law school. He needed a job, and his dad was pretty clear about that. So, because of his interest in becoming a lawyer, to feel things out, he took a position as a paralegal at Latham & Watkins, thinking he'd see how law firms work before actually making the jump. He eventually did make the jump, went to law school, and worked for a few years at Big Law. And, as is often the case at law firms, at one point, he was getting burned out because he was billing 2,600 hours a year. He was obviously a successful lawyer, he just didn't know if he could keep up at that pace. So, instead of going in-house or moving to a smaller firm, or looking into a completely different practice area, he instead took a left turn and took a business development job at legal services provider Axiom. After a few years at Axiom, he took legal ops roles at two of the most well-known tech companies out there, Facebook and Coinbase. So, from seeing the practice of law from all these different angles, Akshay figured out that the biggest problems in legal departments weren't actually about the law, they were about process, data, and people. Armed with this knowledge, Akshay made yet another jump and became COO of SpotDraft. That's a company aiming to fix contract chaos that plagues almost every business out there. He's moved from the back office of Big Law to the front lines of legal tech, proving that sometimes, to fix a system, you have to understand exactly how it breaks. On today's show, Akshay is going to fill us in on why the best legal tools in the world won't save a broken process, and how he and his colleagues at SpotDraft are working to build the operating system for the future of law. I see you start as a paralegal in Big Law, and then you become a lawyer. I got to ask you, so you saw as a paralegal how the sausage is being made. Why are you going to make the jump? Why'd you stick with it?
I actually was talking to one of my former students yesterday about this story. And when I graduated Cal, I was not ready for law school. And thankfully, I had enough awareness to know that. Like, wasn't ready. And there wasn't much else I could do. Like, it was like, other than go get a job. Like, wait, am I going to like take more classes and like screw around for another couple of years? And so, in fact, my dad was like, you're going to go get a job. Like, go get a job right now. And so I started looking around and, I was like, maybe it makes sense. Like, I want to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to law school. Let's go see what law firm life is like. I had done a little bit of work here and there at the DA's office in San Francisco.
Oh, interesting.
This is back when Kamala Harris was a DA. She was an assistant district attorney. So I actually got to see her in court.
So you San Francisco native? Did you go to high school and stuff there?
No, I went to high school. Well, so I moved around a lot. I'm an immigrant. I actually lived in the Midwest when we first moved here. My dad went to Case Western. So we lived in Cleveland, then California, then Phoenix for high school. And then I came back to the Bay Area to go to Cal, and my parents moved back. So Bay Area is home. This is like where I've had my longest stint of staying anywhere. But so it was like, let me look around. And at the time, Latham was giving the best salaries, and it was a really cool office, and I really liked the team there. So that's what I ended up doing. And then it didn't scare me away. There was plenty there that I saw that like a lot of people were like, "Oh, you really want to do this?" And but no, it did not scare me away.
You get an interesting career path because then you go into legal services. You go to Axiom. What's the pivot there? You're an attorney, then you go to Axiom. Like, what happened there?
I was one of those people that I saw Big Law life as a paralegal, and I was like, okay, I know I could do this for a few years. It is not long-term for me. I knew that very early. That changes your entire mentality. I think it just opens things up for you. And so I probably stayed in the law firm life a little too long, to be honest.
I think everybody does.
But you're plugging along, like you're making good money, and like I had my wife and I had a really shitty time getting married. Like there was a lot of family drama and stuff. So it just kind of like takes over your life, and so you just plug along. And then 2011, I had just a horrendous year at the law firm. I was at Ferrella. I think I billed like 2,600 hours that year.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I can't do this. Like we were about to have a kid. I was like, I can't do this. And so I started looking around. I looked at a bunch of different things, in-house, government work. As an environmental lawyer, like solar back then was like really, really big. So I was looking at some solar companies. And then one of the partners at my firm, who was a little bit of a mentor, he turned me on to Axiom. And he's like, you should go check this place out. So I actually went there to practice law in the model that they still have. I mean, they're like a $600 million company now. Back then, it was still like a cool little startup. And so after a couple of months of those conversations, the guy who ended up becoming my manager was like, you ever thought about doing business development and like not lawyering anymore? And I was like, no, I never thought of that. And that started a completely different conversation and a mindset. And before I knew it, I was like, wow, this could be something really cool.
So when you went to Axiom, you were doing BD.
Yeah. I had a chunk of the practice on the West Coast. Then I built my book of business over the next 6 years with Axiom. And that's where that kind of led to the next transition. Like that's where I learned the ins and outs of running legal departments, right? Early on, most of my kind of client contacts were GCs, their deputies. It was a lot of lawyers. And that was like 2012 to maybe like 2015. And then there was this really quick and big shift where the legal ops function and the legal ops role really started becoming prominent, especially in the bigger law departments. I worked with the Googles, the Facebooks, the Ubers of the world when I was at Axiom. Like those are my clients. And so I started working with them directly in the solutions that we were creating and learning from them. And so when Facebook came calling in 2018, it was kind of a natural transition to try something new on the operational side.
Oh, so that's pre-Meta. It was Facebook at the time.
Yeah, I still can't.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
So were you still in business development at Axiom at that time?
Yeah, the whole 6.5, 7 years was all BD.
That is really interesting. I mean, obviously you're getting exposure to the different workflows and the innovation to Axiom, but you're still in business development. Was there any hesitancy on their part to hire somebody from BD or?
Big time. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
my last interview round at Axiom was with Mark Harris, who was the CEO, co-founder CEO. Dude, they grilled me for like a month. I probably had a dozen conversations in that month where somebody different as Axiom was trying to tell me and show me and kind of extract from me that I would not actually do a good job in BD because I was a lawyer. And that's the thing. It's a reality that we have to face, but I was just different. I was built differently. And so there was no hesitation on my part. I'm the kind of person that like if my brain's like, yeah, you can do this, I'll jump in head first. Like, everything else will kind of follow. But there was a lot of hesitancy on their part.
So what about when then you do the jump to legal ops? What about obviously you got the legal background, so that's cool. You got the exposure what Axiom's doing. Was there something about your business development background that was appealing to Facebook to bring you on to legal ops?
No, I mean, I don't think they would have articulated it this way, but when you're doing BD, you have to evangelize, you have to have resilience, you have to have all of those things, which, man, if you don't have that in legal ops, especially at a place like Facebook, it'll eat you alive, right? So I knew that going in. And so I was able to kind of articulate that. But so much of what I had done at Axiom had to do with legal operations. And a big part of it was around legal spend. And it was understanding the law firm model, the law firm economics. That was their biggest pain point. And so that's what I was brought in to do initially. And so that was right up my alley. I mean, they had massive spend even back in 2018 and 2019. And so I was brought in initially as my remit was there to address that spend and figure out a way to reduce it.
Yeah, legal ops, you're trying to sell a new way of doing stuff.
Always.
So you got to be a salesman to do it. That's so interesting.
It's not something we talk about as lawyers and certainly even in-house lawyers.
Right.
Law firm lawyers, yeah, if you're a rainmaker, you got to be out there, but you're not really selling. Man. You're not really selling other than like, here's who I am and here's what I bring to the table. You're not getting an entire legal department behind an idea, right? You're not doing that. That's not a lawyer thing to do. It's a very business-minded thing to do, and it's a critical component of legal operations.
That's a great point. That's so interesting. After Facebook, you go to Coinbase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In legal ops. So when you get to Coinbase, what's the legal department right there? Because they got a lot going on eventually. But when you got there, was it crazy or did it kind of ramp up or what was the situation?
So I left Facebook. It was 2,000 people in legal.
Yeah, wow. That's a huge law firm.
Spot Draft, the company I'm at right now, is about 270. So that entire department was 2,000 people. And Coinbase was significantly smaller at the time. I think the legal group, which is called Trust and Risk, was about 430.
Oh, still big. Still big.
400 was still big, but Like, it just felt, like, so easy to navigate relative to what I'd been used to. And they were on a trajectory. They were on a trajectory to get even bigger in, like, January and February of 2022. But then literally 2 months after I joined, like, the crypto market started falling apart, right? The crypto winter hit pretty hard. That hit the company pretty hard. So it was a tough the first 9 months were really tough. There was this element of, yes, you're a public company at Coinbase now, but, like, Bitcoin's falling apart, which means everybody who thinks that Bitcoin and crypto are, like, the only thing in crypto, think that the crypto market's like all of that was going on. NFTs, like, all of that was going on. And so for me, it was nerve-wracking. It was like last guy in. It's like, "Oh, shit." But I learned so much. It's an incredible team. I still think, and I tell my former teammates and my current company, I still think Coinbase is the best run company on the planet. They're so disciplined, they're so rigorous. They're not perfect, like, I don't mean to say they're perfect, and they'll tell you the same thing, but man, I learned so much about how to run companies in the short time that I was there, in the 18-month stint that I was there, before joining Spot Draft, and I became an absolute believer in crypto and what it brings to the table for the planet.
And it's cool to hear that Coinbase is one of the best run companies that you know of because to the outsider, they probably think, oh, it's crypto, it's wild, wild west. They're flying by the seat
Yeah.
of their pants. But then those in crypto know that Coinbase has always like tried to put their best foot forward. But that's really, really interesting. I think it's a point that most people wouldn't
Yeah.
comprehend. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't build something that no one has ever heard of, that literally the largest institutions on the planet are fighting against and succeed like that without having some serious discipline. And Brian's like that, Emily, their COO, like it's a phenomenal leadership team and they really drive effectiveness throughout the company.
That's cool. Yeah. I love to hear that. So then you just mentioned it, Spot Draft. After Coinbase, you go to Spot Draft, right?
Yeah.
Your path is so interesting.
Crazy? It gets crazy. It's a little all over this, but it's actually not. It's one of those things, and, like, I mentor a lot of law students and junior lawyers. I'm like, "You don't know what's gonna come around the corner. The only thing that you can control is, will you be ready for it? Like, will you be ready for it? And so how do you prepare for that?" And I didn't know Axiom was gonna come across my desk in 2012, but at the time, I was like, "Man, I think I'm ready for this." I didn't know Facebook was gonna come across my desk in 2018. Like, I was in business development, I was having a blast, but there was this, like, "Hey, this is pretty cool." Same thing with Coinbase, like, I knew nothing about crypto when I came in. And so with SpotDraft, it was a very similar kind of conversation and internal dialogue for me. They had been chasing me for a little while to sit on panels with them, and I hadn't had time, or something or the other, like life, COVID, like something had always gotten in the way. And in 2023, I had been at Coinbase for a year. I was feeling more settled in my role. I was going to go to Clock, which is our big legal ops conference, and they were like, "Would you like to speak on a panel that we're sponsoring? Because we're a high level sponsor." So I said, "Yeah." I was like, "Let's do this. You guys have been asking for 2 years. Like, let's do this." So I go to speak on the panel, which was fantastic. Like, some of the leaders on that panel were just amazing. They're doing amazing things now. Even, like, we stay in touch. And I got to meet Shashank, our CEO, got to meet our CTO, Madhav. And the night after the panel, they threw an after party at the hotel. And they were like the talk of the conference. Like, they had gone from this, like, seed round, small, like, legal tech company to a Series A brand that was now becoming recognized. And Shashank and I sat down, we're having a drink, and he was telling me about all the things operationally that were starting to kind of frustrate him. And I was like, "Yeah, you need a COO, man. You should look for a good COO in Bangalore." And before I knew it, he was, like, talking to me about the role, and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." I was like, "Slow down. Like, no, dude, this was not on my roadmap at all." But that, like, just put the seed in my brain. And so I got home from the conference, and I told my wife, I was like, "Hey," I was like, I had this conversation with," she was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool," and didn't think anything of it. And then he'd reached out about a week and a half later, kinda thanking me for everything and all that, and he's like, "Can we pick the conversation back up?" And I was like, "Sure." I was like, "Just so you know, like, I have no, like, the company's doing really well. I don't wanna leave. Like, this is a really cool gig." He's like, "No, I totally get it." He's like, "It would be a risk. It would be a huge risk." And within about a month of that, it was just, like, gnawing at me, and it was that, like, internal question of, like, "Why would you not do this?"
Hey everyone, Vicky from Percipient here. I just wanted to give you a heads up about a new service Percipient is rolling out in 2026, subpoena compliance services. If your company gets a bunch of subpoenas or data requests, Percipient can help. Literally the whole process. You just forward the request to us and Percipient takes it from there. We'll check if it's actually valid, flag any issues, and let you know about any objections. Then Percipient works with your team to gather and prep the data. You'll see everything in Percipient's secure portal. Status, due dates, metrics, all of it. So you'll never be out of the loop. And my favorite part? If you're allowed to charge the requesting party for costs, Percipient software collects that money for you before we hand over the documents. Basically, Percipient handles legwork so your team can focus on the core work. If you want to chat about it, head to percipient.co or shoot us an email at subpoenas@percipient.co.
What was it that was like in you? Because you liked Coinbase. You say it's a great organization, loved your job. Like, what about this opportunity was gnawing at you?
The main question that was there for me at Coinbase was like, you have now had the top role in legal ops at two of the top companies on the planet. Where do you go next? What's next? I'm in my 40s. It's not like I'm retiring anytime soon. Where do you go next? And part of this had that calling was like, this is an executive role that your background is so well suited for. You've been a lawyer, you've done business development, you understand how sales works, you understand operational efficiency, you understand legal technology, you have bought it, you have evaluated it, you have implemented it, you have ripped it out, you've done all of those things. This is like the perfect role for you. And like these kinds of roles don't come along very often. There was a lot of that. And then there was this, I was born in India. This company was born in India. There was a little bit of a homecoming story here for me. We're headquartered in Bangalore. We have about a dozen people here in the US. Two of our execs are here in the US, but the heart of the company is in Bangalore. And so I remember when my dad was at Intel, he used to go to Bangalore. He was an engineer. And back then it was like this jungle that was not even known as the Silicon Valley of India yet. And now it is one of the most booming cities in the entire country. It is the Silicon Valley, like to the core. They have a road where our office is called Unicorn Road. Like there's so much cool stuff going on there. So there was a lot of that was mixed into it as well. And then it was this underdog mentality and this underdog like ferocity.
That's what I've heard in your story. Axiom was small at the time. Facebook was big, but it was still. But there might be some of the anomaly. Coinbase was, there was it was upstart.
I love that. That's who I am. That's like I was an immigrant. Like I was born in this country with that mentality, and so it's always been a part of who I've been. And so there was a really cool piece for that for me there as well.
You meet me at a barbecue. You say I'm the CEO of Spot Draft, and what's that? I'm not in legal. I don't know what that is. What is that? Sounds interesting.
Well, if I meet you at a barbecue and you're not in legal and you don't run a company, we're not talking
yes,
contract.
True. We're talking Cal football, right?
We're going to talk football. Like we're going to talk. But if I happen to, hey, oh, you're a lawyer? By the way, like, where do you work? Like, it's a very easy transition because at the heart of every company are contracts. You cannot run a company without contracts. You can't do it. It is the lifeblood of the company. And very few companies do it well. And Spot Draft at its core helps companies with their contract ecosystem. And I can tell you all the stuff about AI and this, like, we can talk about all those kinds of things. But fundamentally, companies do not manage their contracts well. They don't get them to signature quickly enough or whatever else is there. And then once they're signed, very few companies actually know what's in their contracts because there's so much rich data that's in their agreements. And part of the thing that drew me to Spot Draft as a product was that so many of the other CLM tools back then were focused on one component. They were like, we'll get you to signature quickly. Very important, of course. But what about what's in my contracts that actually informs what I should be doing in getting my contracts to signature? But nobody's really tapping into that potential, and Spot Draft does it all under one roof. So that was a big draw for me because I think that is a really important piece of what we call an end-to-end CLM tool. Is everything from like company needs, hey, we need a contract for this thing, a deal or whatever it is, all the way through to, hey, remember we signed that deal, or what do all our contracts say about this one thing? Those kinds of questions come up all the time in legal. And so that's the value that we bring to the legal department. We're a B2B company. We sell mostly to legal departments.
Before we get in the nitty gritty of CLM contract management and stuff, because I want to get back to the point you just said that most companies don't do it well. Why if I'm in the market for a CLM, why do I choose Spot Draft over some of the others? And out of all the tools out there, CLM is a very full field.
It is a very full field. I'd say every product attacks the problem in a slightly different fashion. So we're not right for everyone. And I think one of the biggest introspective processes that a buyer in the market should be doing is, what do I need? What problems am I trying to solve in my contracting? For some people, it'll be, hey, we are a hyper growth company and revenue is king. So I got to get to signature quickly. But I've got all these process issues and I don't have any technology that I'm leveraging to get me to signature. So that is one kind of customer that would really benefit from the Spot Draft product. The other is the one I was just talking about, which is like, let's say you're a Series B or a slightly more mature company. You're getting the signature okay, but you're getting into hurdles about what's actually in my contracts. Oh, we missed all these renewal dates. Oh, we had these terminations and we actually didn't know about them. So having that data at your fingertips is really, really important. And I think a number of products do that. I think we do that incredibly well. But the thing that really sets us apart is that a CLM tool is not one of your typical SaaS tools. It's not like back end email security where you plug it in, you configure it, and then it's good to go. This is a tool that the entire company, in some fashion, touches regularly on a daily basis. You've got sales teams who are launching contracts. They're like, hey, legal, like this is something that needs your attention. We've got legal teams who are sending things to counterparties to negotiate redline and so forth. And then we've got other potential teams like finance or RevOps who need the data out of their contracts or the data out of the actual deal. So they need that information on a regular basis daily, right? So that's the kind of enterprise level impact that a tool like this has. And that's really what makes it a little bit different from some of the other legal tooling that's out there. I have my holy trifecta of the type of legal tool that every legal department should have. One is your contract lifecycle management tool. You got to have one. Everybody's got to manage their contracts. So that's a no brainer. Number two, beyond a certain level of external spend, and there's plenty of debate around what that number is. I say after $5 million of external spend, you need a spend management tool, something to manage how your law firms get engaged, how you set up those matters, and then how your spend is kind of invoicing.
Five seems like, not to get too far afield of but
Yeah.
why five? Because like if if you spend $1 million in legal, that's not nothing.
It's super, again, I would want to take a look at the volume of matters to really make the call, but it's pretty easy to manage that without spending money on a tool. It's not that these tools are very expensive, but I think you can get by without using a tool to manage those invoices. But beyond that, it gets, because unless you have one matter that's at $5 million, that's easy. But that's not typically how things go, right? Your volume of matters gets dispersed, your portfolio of law firms gets more diverse and increases. And so you want to manage all those relationships from an economic perspective, especially.
And then, so what's three then? What's three?
3 is a workflow tool. This is newer, particularly in the age of AI. Some type of agentic tool that'll help you with workflows. Maybe it's knowledge management for your legal team. Maybe it's building out workflows that connect to your CLM or something else. Maybe it's a legal intake tool a workflow that acts as a legal intake tool for your legal department, for the business to engage with. Like those kinds of, like, the business always has questions for legal. How do they get those answered? You're sending it on Slack or email or something else like that. So an agentic tool, a workflow tool, can really help you compartmentalize
That makes sense. And the fact you're coming from that legal ops background, so you've been there, you've been in the trenches. So back to contracts. You opened all this up. We started talking about Spot Draft. Is you're a believer that most companies don't do it well. I know there's probably a lot of different things that companies do wrong, and it varies from company to company. But if there's one thing you see most often that companies aren't doing right that kind of mucks up the contract flow, what is it?
I'll give you my top 3. And this is a product of data and experience. This is not like, Akshay's view on what the problems are. Number one, most companies don't even have all their contracts in one place. That's just freaking table stakes, man. And just having some kind of repository where all of your contracts are stored and have, some standardized nomenclature in which they're filed away. That is a massive win for many companies. I don't know if you know the name Lucy Basili.
Yeah, no, she's been on the pod.
Yeah, okay, great. So she has this like broken out by percentages. She does a great survey of the market about like what percentage of companies don't even have like centralized repository and so forth. So there's some great data in there. I think she's fantastic. She's one of the best minds in contracting. That's number one. Number two, why are you looking, reviewing, and negotiating nowadays? Why are you? Why would you do that? Show me the percentage of like significant, meaningful litigation that has resulted or some risk that has resulted from an NDA. It's going to be so minuscule. Why are you wasting your time with this stuff? Put it on a portal, put good terms in there, make people sign it. You get one that's a third party, unless it's like we're going into a joint venture or it's highly confidential. That's I get that. You'll negotiate. That's fine. Negotiate that. But how often are you doing that? Once every 5 years? Like, what do you need to negotiate this thing for? Meanwhile, you've got all this high volume work that lawyers are doing. Maybe you're smart enough and you say, you know what? Like, maybe we'll automate it. But like, why are you doing all that? Just get it off your plate. Number three will be I don't have good process built in. So I don't have templates for my basic agreements. I don't have a good process for where the contract goes once the business says I need a contract. Who does it go to? What are the thresholds? What are the approval workflows? Like all of those kinds of things. By the way, I haven't said one thing about technology yet. I haven't said one thing about technology yet. So many of these problems that people face in contracting have nothing to do with technology. And one of my pet peeves, which I understand, because I was in this position, is that technology providers get blamed when the real problem is actually lack of process or lack of adherence to process internally in a legal department. So get your process right. Those are the top three. And if you can solve those three up front, you're going to be a great position to really drive efficiency out of your contracting workflows.
On these points, getting ready to the pod, I checked a lot of your posts on LinkedIn, and to people out there, they should check yours out because you're not in your face selling spot draft. Like you're actually offering some actionable takeaways they can use. There's a couple that and they align with what you're saying right there. First one that is coming to mind, you said, I hate to break it to you, but COM won't fix broken intake, undefined approval chains, or the quote contract final underscore V7 underscore final open paren close paren one docx chaos in your shared drive. And the other one similar, and you alluded to there, is that most efforts to institute tech within an organization don't stumble on the tech itself. It's on the change management piece. So let's say they got their process in place. They're in a position they should get tech going. What do you tell them to do? What do you advise them to do to actually have people adopt the tech, use the tech, get trained on the tech?
So I talked a little bit earlier about like what makes for really good legal ops people. We talked about resilience and evangelists and so forth. Those are the precursors for effective change management. Like human beings we don't like change. Like we can own that. Lawyers are a special breed of human beings. So getting lawyers to change something, it sets off a double alarm bell. It sets off their human, oh, change is here alarm bell. And then it sets off their lawyer alarm bell. Oh my gosh, change equals risk. Very, very, like that's a reality that everybody needs to grapple with. That's okay. So getting ready for change management has a lot to do with evangelizing. Evangelizing has a lot to do with education and preparation. And I think if you can do that, and depending on the customer that we're working with, if they happen to have somebody who is in an ops role, then our team, so I oversee delivery, which is part of my remit is overseeing how our customers get set up in our platform. So after they sign on to be a spot draft customer, then we start the onboarding phase. It can, depending on the customer, their complexity, it can be 30, 40 days. It can be up to maybe 120 days, just kind of depending on what needs to be done for the customer and how complex and voluminous their onboarding is. But through all of that, our messaging is very consistent on a weekly basis when we do our check-in calls to the person on the other side with the customer who is leading the charge. Here is what effective change management looks like for you with Spot Draft. And you have to take the customer where they come. Some will be more mature. Hey, we have this process. It's documented. It's documented well. We actually measure adoption. Adoption's good. That's the easiest customer because all you do then, if they have an existing platform, we take all of that and we move it into the Spot Draft platform, which means their processes, which they're already used to, So what's the change management there? It's a new user interface where the buttons are in a slightly different place, and maybe the workflows look a little bit different in their actual visual perception of the screen that's in front of them. That's an important thing. That's why we built our user interface the way that we did, is I think it's actually more pleasing to the human eye. It's set up much more like an Apple or a Google workflow, which, as you know, Apple obsesses about this stuff. Right. So again, it's not perfect. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it's perfect, but that was another thing that drew me is like, hey, this was built from that perspective because our CTO was a Google AI engineer. Like he brought that to the table for us. So that's a really important piece of it. Now, that's one end of the spectrum of the type of customer. Let's say you're on the other end of the spectrum, no documented process, like none of those things are in place. That is where a lack of process or bad process put into a spot draft platform is a recipe for disaster.
So what do you do? I mean, you don't want to turn away a sale. What do you do?
We'll help them be like, hey, like, do you have an approval matrix for let's just take one basic thing in contracting. So once a contract, do you have templates? Right. And if they don't have those things, we have examples and things that we can share with them. Sometimes we'll bring in an law or another consultant. We're like, hey, you actually need a lot of work up front before we should launch this. If you're game, like we would recommend that you engage with this consultant to help you on this piece. Very few customers take us up on that. It's more money, it's more time. So we do our best, even in that situation, to leverage the platform to give them that kind of process and approval. You cannot set up in a spot draft platform without having an approval matrix. So if they don't have one, we'll say, hey, you need to create one. Before we can get you to go live, who's going to approve the contracts and which contracts go to who for approval? Like we have to have that set up. So by the nature of how somebody goes live in the platform, they are required to engage in some sort of process adoption before they can go live.
Yeah. So we've talked about tech, we talked about process, but recently, and I noticed you posted somewhere that talent and structure win. What about talent? Like, where does that fit in to all of this? You know, legal ops generally, contract management. Like, where does that play out?
You mean for Spot Draft as a company or for our customers?
Just in general. I think what you said is you were at a recent conference and you said the most compelling stories came from teams that invested people, clarity, and consistency.
My experience in all, and like, I've been around long enough to remember when email was not a thing. And so I'm the son of an engineer. I have seen, I don't know if you'll remember the Intel 386 and the 480.
Yeah,
My
yeah, yeah,
dad
yeah, for
was
sure.
part of the design. I've been around technology forever. And I can reflect on that now, given all of the massive advances in technology, particularly in the last 10, 15 years, and then specifically in the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years with legal tech, and in the last 2 years with AI. And there is one consistent theme that cuts across all of that. Technology does not exist without humans. We are the triggers, like we're the puppet masters that make the technology work. And so you have to find the right talent to make sure that the technology is developed properly, is adopted properly, and that it evolves properly. You have to have that. So that's really where the comment around talent, that particular post was focused on legal departments. Because in the last couple of years, there's been all this hoopla, which we are now seeing, I think is probably going to go out the window in a significant way. Is that, AI is going to replace all lawyers and this? No, it's not. It's not going to replace lawyers. What it is going to replace are the tasks that lawyers are doing that are not lawyering. And there's so much of that that goes on in-house. So will it change the structure, the size, the nature of legal departments? Absolutely. But it's not going to change lawyering. It's not going to do that. And so you still have to look for good talent. The nature of what that talent needs to be able to do is changing very, very quickly. And I'm sure you've seen this. And I think I like it. It's this thing that lawyers are not going to be replaced by AI. But if you do not learn AI and how to prompt and how to leverage it as a lawyer, yeah, you're going to be outdated. But that's not any different from any other technology that has come before us. And if you want to focus on the legal profession with respect to that technology, it's the same thing. Could you imagine a lawyer today being like, yeah, I don't use email. I don't use email to communicate. How are you going to communicate?
Still using books, you know?
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. While we're on the topic of the future, with the lawyer of tomorrow, what's on Spot Draft's roadmap? What's the next big thing you're trying to tackle?
We're big on agents right now. This is public, so I can share it. We've got about 30 customers in beta for a product called Sidebar, which I'm particularly excited about. And that's our agentic play. There are a number of pain points that I saw in my time at Facebook and at Coinbase with respect to how information is shared across legal departments. And I'll start with one basic thing, which I'll call knowledge management. Knowledge management is like this huge spectrum of things, and I'll focus in on one part of it, which is all the different policies and procedures in any given company or legal department. And when you're onboarded, you get inundated with that stuff. Maybe you have an intranet or some sort of documentation, whatever it is. But as you and I both know, like that goes out the window on day 5 because you're so buried in your work. And then on day 50, you're like, I know I remember like where did I see this? And then you spend 45 minutes looking for it and you don't find it. And then you go bug people about it and they're like, dude, I don't know. Like you'll have to look here, look there. And then maybe you'll stumble upon it. Like it just wasted a lot of time. So imagine an agent that's plugged into your systems. It's fully within your firewalls that you can ask a natural question to, and here comes some sources. Either here comes the answer in a chat GPT type format, and then it cites its sources, like make sure or confirm this by looking in these documents. Maybe those documents are updated, maybe they're not. But the point is, you've saved yourself an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe a couple of days because somebody wasn't around. They had the only question was in their head, the answer was in their head. So that's one part of Sidebar, which I think is very, very powerful. The other part is getting it into your contracts. Being able to ask your contract repository natural language questions that give you the information and data that you need at your fingertips very, very quickly. So I think those kinds of agentic plays have a huge role in what I will call the operating system for legal ops teams and for the legal department. And that's the direction that we're headed. We kind of re-upped our mission statement. We had a big CXO offsite in the spring in Bangalore. Our new mission statement is building the future of how legal works. And that goes very much in line with all the things that we are now talking about how lawyers and legal professionals in legal departments need to be doing things differently. By the way, this is a drum that the legal ops profession has been beating since inception. It is why we exist. And that was another big draw I had for Spot Draft is as I was talking to our CEO, like these were the kinds of things he wanted me to be out there talking about. I was like, yes. It's like, yes, Spot Draft will sell itself because we have a good product. And if this is the way that we solve people's problems, I know what those pain points are. Then we just have to connect the two. That's it. And that's exactly what's unfolded over the last 2 years that I've been there.
Akshay, appreciate your time, man. If people want to get a hold of you, learn more about Spot Draft, where should they be looking?
LinkedIn is the best place. My email, I'll put it out there, akshay.verma@spotdraft.com. Thanks for having me, Chad. This was a fun conversation.
No, that was great. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Get you on again soon.
Take care.
Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode. As always, we really appreciate you listening. If you want to subscribe, you can find us on most major podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. Also, if you like us enough, I hope you leave us a favorable review. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, this has been Technically Legal.